Howdy, and welcome back to You've Got People Problems, the podcast where we tackle the leadership challenges that no one wants to talk about, but every business faces. I'm your host, Mel Ortiz with Activate Human Capital Group. Today's conversation is with Stephany Day, Fractional COO and Integrator at Duke Business Consulting Group. You'll hear more about her background as we get into the episode, but this conversation centers on why great ideas alone aren't enough and how the right people and structure help leaders turn vision into results. In this conversation, we talk about why visionary leaders need strong operational partners, how role clarity creates better accountability and performance, and why the right people in the right seats make all the difference. Let's get to it. Howdy, and welcome back to You've Got People Problems. I am joined today by Stephany Day, who is an Aggie alumni. We should have met there, but we didn't. But we did meet in the EOS space. And so I'm really looking forward to our conversation on why boys have it easier in the workplace. No, actually, we started there on our pre-call. We started with why boys get to pee outside, and it's just not fair. Really, though, talking about this Elon Musk archetype and how so many visionaries really gravitate towards some of his principles, his quotes, his style, and what we can do to balance that in the workplace. So I'm not really sure where this conversation is going, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm here for it, Stephany.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk about just visionary archetypes as a whole and like different entrepreneurs that they look up to, but particularly Elon Musk, who's like huge in the entrepreneurial space.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your background before we jump into our discussion, and then I'll do the same in case people know you and not me, and then we'll just roll down the road.
Awesome. Yeah. So my name is Stephany Day. I have been in the operational space for a little bit over a decade, running teams from the operations seat, whether it was, ops manager, project manager, all the way up to a COO. And 6 years ago, 2020, I decided to go fractional and start working with organizations, in a fractional capacity. Back then, the fractional space was really in its infancy and not a lot of people knew what fractional meant. And so I was one of the people that was, kind of in the forefront of like, what is this and how do we make it work? And so now I really run a firm of a couple of people. There's 7 of us on the team now. And we just added another cohort of fractional integrators who are Duke DNA trained, and we're just excited to continue to like really revolutionize the space. We like to differentiate ourselves in that we get really involved with our teams. We're not just in to run meetings. We're there to really work with the visionaries on what is your vision. Where are you going with this business? How are you going to revolutionize the space that you're in? And then how do we create an actual roadmap for your team to get in and really do what it is that you're hoping to get done. So we work with businesses primarily over the 10 million mark. A lot of our businesses are under 200 employees or so. And so that lower middle market is really great for us. And we're pretty industry agnostic, though we work mainly with blue collar businesses, which is one of the other reasons that you and I connected a ton. We're loving it. And that's Duke in a nutshell.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you for being here. I've always enjoyed our interactions. And if you know Stephany, you don't know me, my name is Mel Ortiz, and I lead Activate Human Capital Group. I've been working on right people, right seats, employee engagement, and role clarity work for about the last 20 years. And I absolutely love it. There's this mutual benefit that happens when you get the right butt in the right seat, because not only do they provide better work quality and quantity for the organization, but they go home at night with more energy for their family, their faith, their physical well-being, whatever's important to them. And for me, that's just been this endlessly engaging sandbox to play in, where the organization's better off, the humans are better off, and even their humans in their worlds are better off. So let's just jump in. Tell me about this archetype that you've seen so often.
Yeah. So I threw it out there. Whenever you and I were chatting, and I just kind of threw it out there, and we kind of said, oh, this would be a fun topic to talk about so that, like more people could hopefully learn about it. But I think, what I was telling you is that we work with, I think 10 to 15 clients at any given time. Each one of us is really dealing with 3 clients at a time at most. And so we get very close to our visionaries, right? So the way that we like to say it is like, we like to think of ourselves really as a part-time COO, right? So like the word fractional to so many people means like a consultant and someone that's external from your team. And we say, no, like I'm wearing your merch. I'm like,
Right for the brand.
I'm at your Christmas party. I am part of the team. I'm just here part-time. That is what fractional means to us at Duke. And so we get really close to our visionaries. We want to hear, their deepest, darkest thoughts on where the company's going. And often enough, we come face to face with the Elon Musk archetype of someone that is just highly creative and just so okay with risk. And if you know anything about visionaries and integrators, right? Like your integrator archetype normally includes some sort of like risk averseness. It doesn't matter like what kind of integrator you have. I would say like 90% of us are like very low on the risk
Or at least
level,
risk
right?
mitigation, right? Like, how do we slow our roll just a little bit?
Yeah, we're very much like we're obsessed with making sure that that we're thinking ahead, that we're looking around the corner. And because we have that obsession, a lot of what we do is risk averse. It's like we don't love to risk it. And I often bring up the story of like I've never broken a bone my entire life, and it's because I will not climb a tree. Like, my husband is your typical visionary who's just like got urgency, creativity, and all the things. He's broken so many bones in his lifetime that I couldn't even count them. I have his medical record. It's like that thick. It's like a huge binder. Versus mine, that like the biggest blip of it is like my pregnancy. Like I never get sick. I don't like to risk. And so when we meet lots of visionaries that are out there that have built these, 10, 20, even we have certain clients that are at $100 million. These $100 million businesses, they risk. That is how they got there, right? They took the risks. A lot of them come from like family owned businesses that were stagnant. And then suddenly, whenever they became the CEO, the organization grew. And how did they grow it? They risked. They took the risks that their dad didn't want to take, or their mom didn't want to take, their brother didn't want to take. They did those things. And so when you look at Elon, right, especially if you're someone that's creative, that is okay with risk, and you see that this is an individual that is creative, right? He has like that I mentioned it earlier, the first principles thinking, right? The thinking outside the box. You see that and you're like, that's me. I'm just like that. And so we come face to face with these individuals that have a lot of that creativity, that have all of that urgency, that have all of that, what I would call absurd risk tolerance. And, and they want to be as big as Elon. They want to be these huge CEOs, but at the same time, they're running these organizations that like, this is real life. And Elon, just as much as he has all these great things about him, also has these downsides, these dark sides about him that I think a lot of the entrepreneurs that we work with don't see until we start to work with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like what I mean whenever I say like, the Elon Musk archetype of visionaries. It's like, I respect them to no end because they're so creative, because they have that risk tolerance, because they are urgent and deadline driven, and they want things done fast, and they want them done creatively, and all the, they want to be the top dog in their industry in whatever area they're in. And at the same time, they lose people quickly, right? The turnover is crazy. And it's because they're like, oh, no one wants to work.
Let's go down that rabbit hole a little bit. When you see people issues between that visionary leader and the team, where do they often pop up? I see it against that sense of urgency, right? Nobody gets anything done as quickly as I do. They're not you. What else do you see, and how does that ripple through the team in a way that you can start to buffer?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The deadlines and the urgency, like that is 100% where a lot of the chaos comes from, when you have a team that's like, I'm working as hard as I can. and this guy or gal still wants me to go faster and do it more, and like, why aren't you getting it done fast enough? Also, like, why aren't you thinking the way that I think, right? That creativity. And I have some visionaries that do it really well, that have noticed, obviously, that they are the way that they are. And so they,
That's
they
helpful.
ask, yeah. So they ask a lot of questions, like, why didn't you think about it this way? I'm curious, why didn't you, go do some research on, this and this, and how did you not land where I landed? And they get curious about it. But then I have some visionaries that are like, oh, this guy's an idiot. He didn't think about it the way that I thought about it. And so then there's that resentment of like, why didn't you think the way that I wanted you to think? And then this individual is like, oh crap, I have to think outside the box. And like, how do I think like this guy or gal that thinks like Elon Musk, that's like completely out here thinking visionary thoughts about how, and it's normally like simple things too, like how to pay someone outside of a holiday or something like that, where like a normal person might be like, oh, well, we're just gonna have to pay them late. And this visionary,
whoa. I won't take that for an answer.
and this visionary might be like, no, like we find a way outside of like, how do we Venmo them? How do we, and it's of course like a lot of leaders will like,
right? Like they come up against roadblocks for a living, and all they do is they find these detours where everyone else goes, oh, we have to wait till Monday. Whoa. I don't want to wait till Monday. I told them, I gave them my word, I'd pay them today. Well, it's the 4th of July, bro.
Exactly. And so, but then there's also like that resentment of like, well, why didn't you think ahead of time so that we don't run up against this wall, right? And the visionary's right. I don't want like anyone listening to this think like, oh yeah, like we should pay people on Monday after a holiday. Like obviously, no, like visionary is right. But when you have people that don't think the way that you do, that don't run into roadblocks all the time, we have to teach them to get into that point, instead of calling them an idiot and just being like, I got to fire this person because like they didn't think as creatively as I did. And so that's where like, again, the integrator comes in and says like, all right, let's not fire Debbie just because she didn't think ahead of time of the 4th of July. Let's teach Debbie that moving forward, anytime there's a holiday, we do payroll, a week in advance, whatever. But it's those
if we hired a bunch of people like you, they'd make you crazy. And you'd fire them anyway. So we actually have to hire people that complement your natural talents, that think differently than you do. And then you have to start to appreciate their differences. Like one of the phrases, as you were saying, that came to me, one of my phrases my husband's not allowed to say in my house is, why didn't you just think about it this way? Why didn't you do it this way? I'm like, why don't you just shove it where the sun don't shine? Because I don't really want to hear about it. I did it my way.
You can't say that at work. You can't say that at work, Mel. That's the problem. You can't tell your boss to just shove it. So that's like, a lot of like the navigating that as an integrator we have to do. It's being able to balance like their God-given talent for, these Elon Musk minds to have these sort of, creative thoughts, to have these sort of, this drive and this urgency, but also say, okay, but now we have to like compromise, right? As much as like you want to go, we want to, let's just fix this so that in the future we don't like come against it again, and so, so that's where like normally, and normally when we come in like that's like the sort of issues that we see where it's like they do become people issues, but sometimes it's not even like a right person, right seat issue as much as it's like a visionary not being able to slow down issue, slowing down to make sure that the right seat is really defined so that when we put Debbie in there, we can actually measure Debbie against that, that seat that we created. And then the risk part is obviously so hard on so many people, because even if you're not an integrator, if you're like a controller at an organization with a visionary that's like absurdly risk tolerant, you might see like some of the investments or some of the changes that he or she, I keep saying he, but it's like really, I know a couple of she's that are Elon Musk she's, that, that they just want to go, and they want to make these, changes and investments and like things that are fast. And the controller or your CFO might be like, hold on, financially, like, but then they're scared of like saying, hey, you got to slow down. And so it's a huge balance, but that is where you lose your people as someone that's very, risk tolerant or, and urgent and creative. That's where you lose your people, because not everyone's going to think the way that you do as a visionary. And that's
nobody will. because
That's
they'd be
exactly right.
working for themselves if they did.
That's exactly right. Not everyone's
And I
like
think
you. It's a gift.
that integrator seat is so often the one who acts as a translator to say, I see where you're going. Someone's got to see where they're going because not everyone can even track. Then they have to break it into chunks of what are we going to do by when to start chipping away towards this goal. And then we have to make them go away for a little bit, go talk to customers, go play golf, go do something, because like in our family business, our team often jokes that it's time for my dad to go take a vacation so they can just catch up and do their work and not be pestered with new plans and new
ideas.
rework.
Yeah.
So that translator piece is so valuable in your seat, which is why I think the fractional piece works so well, is we don't need a full-time person in the translator seat and in the assignments and breaking it down. We just need someone to hold people accountable in a way that isn't as abrasive as sometimes that visionary can be, that can be along for the ride. And then putting the brakes on to say, okay, well, we're working on these 14 other initiatives. Which of these would you like to stall on to make room for this other one? And they go, well, none. Okay, well, let's prioritize, look at cost benefit, look at which has the most opportunity for us. And then we bring it back to them, right? As visionaries, I've been in your seat before, and it was like riding a runaway horse. And it was like, you're always pulling back on the reins going, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's been like enough visionaries that I've worked with that I can count how many times like we've gone from an organization where I just started and everyone's like, oh yeah, this is like the flavor of the week because like this is just a new idea that he's got and or she's got, and we're gonna come in and we're gonna come up with these rocks and whatever, and this is not going to be the same plan for later. And I watch it happen, but I'm the person that says, hey, we have to slow down. We can't make we can't make what you're trying to do happen right now. And then the next quarter and the next quarter. And then you normally by the third quarter and I just had one of those where it's like my third quarter with a team. And everyone just came in and they like rated the meeting a 10 and a 9 at the end of the meeting because it was just so good. Everyone knows exactly what they need to do. The VTO is exactly where we're going. It says exactly who we are. Everybody knew exactly what the problems were and everybody contributed. And it was just such a good vibe after the meeting because it's like, we know that the CEO knows what we're working on and that he's not going to come into my office 3 weeks from now and say, we need to pivot, because he knows that in 3 quarters, he gets to come back into that room and tell us what's important again. And that's going to be fun for him. Yeah. So it's almost like the trust the process thing doesn't click for a visionary or for a CEO who's very urgent, who's, an Elon Musk archetype, because they haven't had teams running smoothly, doing all the things that they want to do. And it's their own fault. It's like what is it? The self-eating, the snake. Prophecy. Yeah. The snake eating its tail, right? It's like, they're like, oh, my team sucks. And it's like, your team sucks because you're not letting them work because you're coming in with another idea again. So let them do their work. And then suddenly, yeah, they're going to make mistakes and we're going to fix things. We're going to pivot here and there. And we're going to like fix the scorecard a little bit. And then another quarter is going to pass. And Elon Musk's can't wait another quarter on their own. So they need that integrator to be able to like say, hey, here's what's happening. This. Yeah, we got this. Like, hold on. The what you just said. Yeah.
I think they also need somebody to hold their hands and say, look them in the eye and say, we're either going to change the people or we're going to change the people. Yeah. We're either going to get our act together and get what you want to get done, or we're going to hold them accountable and say, you're not in the right seat and we're going to change out and try with somebody else. But you can't do both at once. It's just too much churn. And then we never get the stability to start on the upward trend again. I mean, even I was with a client this morning that has convenience stores, and they said it's like 48 hours, 24 work hours of training, and then another 24 of shadowing. So even in a convenience store environment, that's a whole lot of time to just get them using the cash register, cleaning the bathrooms, saying hello to customers, and restocking the shelves. And that amount, and somebody has to stop what they're doing to support those people. So even at very, very entry-level jobs, that level of turnover has a major cost. And so to get these things right, one of the things we're doing with their team is integrating predictive index. And one of the things they keep struggling with is when they get all these mystery shops, it's like, well, they didn't make eye contact. They didn't suggest upsells. They didn't do these 5 things that really improve the customer experience and our profitability, 2 things that matter. And so we're like, well, we built a PI target for more open and friendly people who will naturally do that, even without being taught. And then you're going to teach them, and we should see exponential gain in the next 6 months. But if
That
we
6-month
don't
timeline.
give it the time, we got to do the thing.
That 6-month timeline, I can just tell, like, any of my visionaries that are Elon Musk archetype, they're just going to be like, what do you mean 6 months? Like, no, we need this like yesterday. Like, how do we fire I'm already thinking like my Elon people that they're going to be like, wait, how do we do this? Like, yes, how do we do this today? Can we fire everybody and just replace them with everybody that's in that PI, archetype?
That target.
That target. Yeah. And that's the tough part. That's where, as the integrator, you have to kind of come in and be like, I know that sounds really easy, but if we fire everybody today to try and replace them with this PI profile, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. And they don't like to hear that. They don't like to hear 6-month timeline. They don't like to hear that's not going to work. But we have enough experience and enough skin in the game normally that we want this to work for you. And you know that we want it to work. So help me help you, right? Like, so we have to like slow them down and show them how in 6 months we can turn things around. But that's the hard part for them. That's the work that they have to deal with.
One of my favorite movies of all time is The Princess Bride. Do you know this movie? And when Inigo Montoya is like waiting at the top of the cliff to fight this guy who's coming, he's like, I hate waiting. And he's just like waiting and waiting to have this fight. My husband teases me all the time, like, waiting, yeah. Or patience, yeah. How long does that take?
Yep, that's exactly right. Patience. How long does that take? That is your visionary line.
I think one of the things I've seen in working with a lot of these archetypes is if we help them see that each change we make, when we change the people and help them level up, or the changes where we need to change the person out, each one keeps getting incrementally better. Then they start to what you were talking about, like trust the process. Like, we know what we're doing. We have good data. It won't work every single time. There's no silver bullet. But like, I was talking to a visionary this morning that runs a managed service IT company, an MSP. And he's got a service manager that needs to be changed. She wants the role. She gets it, but she doesn't have the capacity. And she's already acknowledged, like, I'm probably not going to be your person. She wants a different role in the organization. So she's going to be a part of the process of making the change. And he said the thing you said, I want it yesterday. Okay, great. How about tomorrow? We could start this entire process. He goes, great. I know somebody in my network. I want them to take the PI. I'm like, great, let's meet on Wednesday. We'll have it all set up by then. And there was this like, okay, thank you for hearing me.
Yeah, it's the patient that like, they honestly, they feel like they have never been heard, like really heard in the past. And when you have that integrator counterpart and you start to notice that, like, we're there to really hear you out and also put this into action and build out a plan that's going to put all this stuff into motion, then there's just there's a bit of a sense of like relief of like, oh, we're moving in the direction that we need to. And every day there's 1 or 2 actions that are going to get us there. And suddenly the process the 6 months doesn't seem as long anymore when you have that, everyday motion towards like the right place. So I agree. I think that's great.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up another one that I saw today on a call. Visionary run company. He's kind of a nitpicker. He only sees what's wrong. Very common for our visionaries. But he has a team member who is continually not accountable, who takes things on and then there's some reason they didn't get done. And I'm kind of curious, when you encounter those interactions, how do you confront those?
Yeah.
Because it's clearly become a pattern.
Yeah, we have a company where we had an individual who had that pattern. And so coming on in January, one of the very first things that we do is like, we do like the interviews with each one of the people that we're going to work with, just a quick one-on-one in the beginning, just get to know you, tell me about like what the issues are. And this individual happens to be friends with, the owner. And so anytime that there is like a missed deadline, they don't want to, make this person accountable because that's my buddy. And, something happened with his daughter or something happened with.
Cut the guy some slack.
Yeah, it's literally never him, just, it looks like a pattern, but it's not, so there's a lot of that. And so coming on board, we just kind of tracked what's happened in the past and kind of like, okay, great. In the next 2 months or so, we're going to be tracking what's going to be happening. And the funniest thing was, we didn't really get to track anything because the moment that there was, so in EOS, we called it LMA, right? Leadership, management, and accountability, or leadership plus management equals accountability. It's an equation. The moment that there was someone in the integrator space saying, hey, so last week at the L10, you said you were going to do blank. You didn't do it. During the meeting, you said, something came up, or like so-and-so was out of town at a conference, and that's why that didn't work. Tell me, like, what happened there? How did you not know that so-and-so was going to be at a conference? Like, that's someone from your team. So whenever there's that one-on-one time, suddenly by month 2, where I was tracking this individual and trying to see, like, okay, does he really have a pattern of missing deadlines and missing things? Because there was at least a conversation and there was just open and honest communication about why this is important for the business, and why, if I had just known that he was going to be in 2 weeks, like, I don't care if you get this done in 2 weeks. Like, you can tell me that you're going to get it done in 2 weeks. I'd rather you tell me 2 weeks from now this will be done than tell me 3 days, and then 3 days happens and I don't have it. And, and you could have easily just told me 2 weeks, because then we could have either figured out another way to get it done in 3 days, or 2 weeks is totally fine. And so I think when you encounter individuals like that, my biggest piece of advice is, like, there's got to be that leadership and management, meaning, one, you have to be a great leader and a great manager, and you have to communicate a lot, and you have to communicate often. And the communication is not like, hey, why didn't you do this? It's, hey, how can I help you get this done? Like, are you out of resource? Like, do you GWC? Do you want this role? Right? Do you have capacity for it? Are you running out of capacity? Is your team out of capacity? Where's the issue? Why are things falling through the cracks? And suddenly when we start to get curious about why things are not happening, it removes the issue, right, from the person, and it becomes more like, this is the issue. And whether that is a people or a process issue, we can actually solve it because we're getting curious about it.
Because part of it is we're removing the shame, and we're going, instead of combatively head to head, we're going shoulder to shoulder, say, okay, what's the issue? How do we fix it? And they start to feel like, actually, the issue's me. I can't do this job. And I've had so 100%. Many people say, yes, I feel like I'm letting you down. And they don't want that either. Nobody wants to suck at their jobs. They want to show up and perform and support, but they don't know how to say, I'm in over my head.
Yeah. I had an HR director that, coming in to the organization, they told me, she is a right person, right seat issue. We need to get her out. Your first part of your role, the very first thing that I want you to do is get her out of here, get somebody trained up. We are done. She is messing everything up, and she's horrible. And like, just like all this like stuff. And I'm like, oh man, like, she must be like the worst. And so I start looking into it, and I start having my one-on-ones with her. And by week 3, we've got her rocks. We've got things figured out. On the backside, I am, having conversations with the visionary, and I'm saying, okay, like, do we make this individual be replaced, or do we make a 90-day plan? We're having conversations about what's happening next. But within those first 3 weeks of LMA, of like figuring out, what are you actually responsible for? Where is your time going? We figured out she's like spread way too thin. There's a bunch of stuff that was thrown on her plate that was not part of her responsibilities when she hopped on to, and accepted this role. And turns out those are things that somebody else should be doing. So let's move those over here, and let's give her, a couple other people on her team that are going to be helpful to her. And suddenly she's great. She's amazing. She's the best employee in the organization all of a sudden. 6 months later, started as a right person, right seat issue.
And it was really a role clarity issue and a resource.
It was a role clarity issue. That's all it was. But there was a lot of shame. There was a lot of guilt from this individual, thinking like, man, I really suck. Like, I'm letting you guys down. And she was, and she felt horrible, and she felt accused, and she felt, all sorts of feelings. And suddenly when we just got down to the nitty gritty, like, what is your job? Oh, your job is this. Okay, great. Like, do this, and like, stop doing all this other stuff that turns out belongs to this other individual. And also, we're not measuring you on the right things. Let's measure you on the right things. She started to feel like a rock star. She started to get wins on the board. And when you see a couple of wins, you're like, I can do this. I could really do this. So then we do a GWC and she's like, of course I want this. And now I do have the capacity and I do, get what I'm supposed to be doing because my job description actually aligns with what I'm doing day to day. And I'm getting compensated fairly for the things that I'm doing. And I'm suddenly not dealing with all this other stuff that I'm supposed to be dealing with. And it was a huge change, which a big turnaround, but a lot of that, I think back on that experience and I know that it would have been a million times different. And if I had come in and just listened to everything that everyone was saying and just said, you know what, you suck. And like, you're not getting the work done. We're putting you on a PIP and like, get out of here. Like if I had come in with that sort of attitude and just snapped my fingers and gotten her out, like that would have been a bad experience for everyone involved. But instead we have much happier team. The people that wanted more responsibility have more responsibility. She's got less responsibility that's not supposed to be hers to begin with. She's hitting all her metrics. The team's hitting all their metrics. Suddenly, like the team is like rocking and rolling. And they're like, 6 months ago, we wanted to fire this individual. But now here we are.
Except that it's not. There's a formula for it and it's okay. We can follow the process because it works. And sometimes, it's interesting in the last 6 months, how often I've had to give permission to leaders to hold people accountable. They like somehow get this memo that they're a victim to this behavior. And I wrote this thing, I was with a client the other day and I wrote this thing down, like behavior that's unacceptable, that's accepted is by definition accepted behavior. Whether they're late, they're on their cell phones all the time, all these things that owners don't like, but they don't call people on, they just bluster about them. But we don't change the behaviors. Then they want to change the people. I'm like, whoa. We have to just tell them, hey, this is out of bounds and let them get up to speed.
1,000%. Like, and it's so crazy. Like you always say like, it's easier said than done. Like, I will say that like visionaries are always telling me like, well, it's easier said than done. Like I've heard you on this podcast or I heard you, or I saw a post that you put in there, but like, how do you do that? And someone asked me like point blank, they were like, I want to be able to switch someone from, and he's an owner of an MSP actually. And he was like, we're very different industry. And like, I can't switch my engineer from being my VP of engineering to, just having like a director role, because like, that's a move down and that would never work. But you posted that, you sometimes it's like a right person, but wrong seat. And that person would be happier to be moved. And he's like, I just don't think that would work. And I gave him some pointers. All I did was give him some pointers. I was like, listen, we didn't even work together. Like he ended up not hiring us, but I gave him some pointers. I just said, look, I think like open and honest, right? Have the job description in front of you. Walk through like, do you get this, right? And do you want to do this? And then do you have the capacity to do this? Because you're dropping the ball here, and here. And we can either see over the next 90 days now that we've talked through it, if you're able to like get better, or do you want to be in a director role where you're overseeing a lot less? And yeah, you might be making less money, but you're also dealing with a lot of less stress and maybe you won't drop the ball. And he came back and like, I think it was like a month and a half later. And he's like, okay, I did all that stuff. He got demoted. Hopefully he doesn't mess up anything in my company. And I'm like, okay, great. Like, awesome. Like now you have this rock star director who's also a great person for your organization. And you quote unquote demoted him, but he's going to be much happier in that role. And I got an email like, I don't know how long ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. It was pretty recent. And he's like, and I had emailed him and just said, hey, how are things going? And he's like, things are going amazing. The new VP is amazing. The guy that we demoted into the director role like works. He's like, this is crazy that this works. And all you have to do is ask those questions. Like, do you want to do this? Because sometimes they accepted, a promotion or they accepted a role that they were really excited about and they're going to make a lot more money. But turns out it's a lot more stress and it's a lot more headaches for them. And when they get quote unquote demoted, and maybe they're making, 20K less a year, but they realize now I have more time for my family. And now I'm working within the capacity of like what I want to be doing. Like it's a world changing for them.
Yeah. I have two of those going on with my clients right now. One is a family member. That's especially challenging because there's the ego, there's the compensation, there's a lot there. And then there's one, it's a very long-term employee. And both of them ended up in these roles that were not well suited to them. And both are being demoted one's being moved into a different department. One's being just demoted from a manager. one, the long-term employee is able to keep his compensation. The owner said, I'm not even going to take his pay away. We just got to free up this seat for someone else who wants to manage the people in the process. He doesn't. He could keep wanting to go to a machine and run the machine. And that's not what I need the supervisor to do. I need the supervisor to see the lay of land. And it's amazing when we hold their hands and help them tackle these things, the amount of stress and personal ownership that an owner often carries with them for the well-being of people on their teams, that they need often a little bit of a nudge, be like, you're on the right track. It's okay. We're going to make this happen together because you're right. It isn't good for them. And it's certainly not good for you or the company. So
yeah, sometimes all it is they need that third party to come in and just say, listen, you're not wrong. Like you're right to be urgent about making these changes because yes. And then sometimes they're not, right? Like I do want to acknowledge, like sometimes, like I mentioned with the HR manager, like sometimes I'll come in and they'll tell me this is a wrong person, wrong seat, and rah, 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 rah. And turns out it's like a phenomenal fit, someone that totally fits their core values, that totally loves what they're supposed to be doing, but it's just like the seat is like overly scoped or like, or you've got like two roles combined into one. I've seen that a million times. I'm like, what are you guys doing here? Like you have somebody managing 3 different departments, 10 different people. Like that's in all sorts of parts of the world. Like, of course that's going to be bad for them. And of course they're going to do a bad job. No one's going to do a good job in that role.
You're
It's
setting
like,
everyone
let's
up
scope
to
it
fail
correctly.
here. We definitely need to talk about the role review process that I do with clients because it's a really quick facilitated way to get to exactly those discussions. And I've had so much quick client success with like, oh, this is the problem. Oh yeah, we can fix this. And it becomes less about that person and all my built up expectations or letdown about that person that I've allowed to creep in as a leader that wasn't probably fair. So I know we're coming to the end of our time. Let's come back to Elon Musk. Let's talk about like 1 or 2 pros and cons of this mindset and just celebrate our visionaries for a moment. And the fact that they make things happen. They often teach us ways that we didn't even think of to make things happen. What else do you have? What else do you see that really benefits teams, customers, society at large?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about, like the creativity, the risk. I think being so tolerant to risk is such a good thing. And being so creative is such a good thing. All of those things I think should be celebrated. And there is a time and place to be celebrated when you're not having your workforce that is grinding against you and your creativity. And so being able to find that good compromise is going to be helpful for any of my Elon archetypes. I think also like the pivots, like those are one of the cons that I'm like, all right, visionaries. I know that Elon talks about quickly pivoting whenever you see something that's not working, trying those experiments, trying new things quickly and being fast. And I think there is a time and space for experiments and for quick thinking and for pivoting. And there's also a time and space where Elon is amazing at what he does. But there's also a time and space where you have to say, this is the vision of the organization, right? And we can't go from a horse recovery ranch to an AI horse recovery ranch, just because that's what is, hot in the market. And so what I tell my visionaries, like that, it's a huge pro and con whenever they want to pivot so quickly, when they want to, try new things because it's what's hot in the market. And the pro is that, yes, that's creative. The con is sometimes like, that's not what's right for your business. And you have to be, really cognizant of those ideas, right? You're going to have really great ideas. Yeah. You're going to have creative ideas and you're going to have some that we're going to have to tell you, hey man, we're still a horse ranch. Like we're not gonna be able to like get into AI, or like we're still an HVAC company. Like you don't need a ton of AI yet. So yeah, there's definitely some friction there, and I try and you want to encourage the good sides of your Elon archetype, and you also have to be like really cognizant there are going to be sides to the Elon archetype that are going to be hard to deal with. And if you're a visionary that's like that, being able to just notice whenever I sound like a Buddhist, notice whenever you're having those sort of thoughts where, it's a really creative, fun idea, and being able to bring that to your team with lots of curiosity and a humble, from a humble space in your heart, knowing that they might say, hey, this is a horrible idea, boss. And like, I don't think we should create our own LLM because we're a horse ranch and like we shouldn't be doing that. So yeah, I mean, I think first principles thinking, that Elon Musk idea is amazing. I think that there is a time and space for it, and there's also a time and space for the letting your creativity ride it out or taking a back burner for a little bit because you're dealing with other things like your workforce churn.
Yeah. I also think one caution I would put out there from a lot of these archetypes that I see is they're so driven and they value the grind and they glorify the grind.
Yeah.
And I think that's certainly something Elon promotes that I don't think is healthy. It's not common, and it's less common now. Our younger generation in the workforce really values their whole life, not just their work life, and making space for them to still contribute and not contribute 85 hours a week is healthy. You don't want them to burn out. And so that's a hard one to get over.
I could go on for another hour about like Gen Z and how amazing some of them, like their talents are, and how we need to like just help them rise to the occasion without trying to like force them to be the way
our way.
Yeah, because come on, like we know we've had like there are several things that are wrong with like the older generations, and one of those things is like we didn't have a ton of that work-life balance that Gen Z is really, trying to encourage and do in their generation. I think it's phenomenal. I think they should do that. And I encourage, so we have one core value, or we have 3 core values at Duke PCG, but we also have like a unspoken core value of the 3 F's. We talk about like, we never want our work or the work of our visionaries to, mess with the 3 F's, and it's your faith, your family, and your fitness. So if you are in any way, like your faith can be any faith. I don't care, even if it's literally not believing in anything. But if working for this organization or working within the organizations that we work with, like if your faith is challenged or in some way, challenged by the organization because of the work that you're having to do, like you shouldn't work there. If your family time, whether that is literally being by yourself or spending time with your 10 kids, like if that is being, challenged by the work that you're doing, don't work there. And if your fitness or your health is challenged by the place that you work in, don't work there. Like don't do that to yourself.
Stop.
Those are the most important things. Yeah, those are the most important things. So,
most of the entrepreneurs I work with, we call them non-negotiables. They're outside their core values. It's their non-negotiables. And depending on the environment, they change, but same thing. Those are the foundational elements in addition to our core values that seems to work really well. So Stephany, thank you so much for the work that you do with companies. Thank you for your time today. And I'm really looking forward to this one going live.
Likewise. Yeah. And I can't wait to listen to more episodes. You're going to have to talk to someone about this Gen Z phenomena. Like I want to hear your thoughts on this.
I love it. All right. Thanks, Steph.
Thanks.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of You've Got People Problems. If you got something out of the conversation, make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with the other leaders in your network, because let's face it, we all have people problems. You can watch full episodes on YouTube or listen on your favorite podcast app. But either way, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.